this protest that we now see happening now across nearly every state in America. I mean, people, they were marching in Fargo, North Dakota, or is it South Dakota? Fargo. Elizabeth and I spent a night in Fargo, going back many, many years ago, on our way to Glacier National Park up there in Montana. And we happened to roll into Fargo, spend the night, had a meal there, had some chili beans, I think, and some Western steak, something like that. Anyway, but this protest is going on as a result of George Floyd's lynching by Mr. Lynch there in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a week ago Monday. Is perhaps one of the most sustained protests and marches of any era in America. Now, of course, there have been, the protests of the March on Washington, 1963. Dr. King. There's been other protests, other marches, as the Cox's Army March back in the 1900s. There have been the Poor People's March, also on Washington. There have been a lot of different types of marches and protests in various cities and states. But there's never been anything that's coordinated that has lasted as long as this. A King would march and then it'd be over with. The march in Memphis, Tennessee would be a one-day event. After that, it's over with. This thing is in its 8th day. And last night in Lafayette Park, up and down 8th Street in Washington, D.C., were literally tens of thousands of people out there marching. And then unique to this march and protest is the fact that it's never in the history of the annals of any government has any president or leader ever led a march against the protesters. When Trump, with Bill Barr and Mike Espy, and the other leaders there, and Mark Meadows, marched across Lafayette Park and 8th Street over to the St. John's Episcopal Church, you ought to see them. There's never been a time when a president, sitting president of the United States of America, has ever led a march against protesters. This is unique. So we're breaking new ground here that ain't never been broken in heaven or on earth before. Even Solomon have to wake up to that. The president of the United States leads a protest march against the protesters. Never seen nothing like that before. But one of the sustaining things about this march, and that's going to continue, it will probably dissipate soon enough. I have one question though, and this is a little bit of an aside. Where do all these people go to the bathroom? I mean, they're out there in the street for 4 or 5 hours. Maybe that's why many of them are young, but I guess you're young, you can hold your bladder for 4 or 5 hours, and don't have to go. You get a little older, you never pass up a bathroom. Old men never pass up a bathroom. Anyway, so they out there drinking water and everything and still standing. The stamina out there is incredible. All right, so let's go get back to reality. So this march is being sustained. I just thought I wanted to say the death of Dr. King in 1968, riots broke out in Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and then after a day or two they were put down. But in response to the death of Dr. King in 1968. And then, of course, the next big riot, multiple cities march and protest and riot was in 1992 when the Simi Valley group jury brought back a not guilty verdict against 4 police officers that whooped the living daylights out of Rodney King. Riots broke out in Los Angeles, and they lasted for about 3 or 4 days, those riots, and Los Angeles was the epicenter. Some rioting happened in some of the other cities in a small way. But strangely enough, in the Los Angeles riot, 65 people were killed because people were shooting back at one another. And a lot of people were killed by careering store owners who, when they saw the rioters coming towards their stores, opened up their automatic weapons. A lot were killed by the police as well. And that riot consumed over several $1 billion of property damage there up and down Normandy and Florence Boulevard and Crenshaw Boulevard there in South Central Los Angeles. But eventually it was put down. But this one is longer. Now, there have not been as many deaths and then for various reasons, that this march protest and demonstration of the death of George Floyd has not, at this moment, birthed as many deaths as the Rodney King verdict did. But if you fast forward, and some jury in Missouri lets Mr. Lynch and his 3 partners in crime go as not guilty, all bets off. All bets off. Minnesota, what did I say, Missouri? Yeah, all bets off. So a jury in Minnesota, not Missouri. So we're going to see how all this works out. But one of the things I noticed, I was watching the other night, right here in New York City. And by the way, what is it what Andrew Cuomo now talking about the fact that Bill de Blasio did not do a good job on Monday night quelling the rioters in New York City, and that if he don't do a better job, Governor Cuomo said he's going to take over the job of the mayor. He's going to displace the mayor and take over himself as governor. What the hell is that? That's the kind of talk that Trump talks. What is it with this Cuomo boy? He ain't, I knew his daddy, but I didn't know his daddy. But my Pastor Stanley and his daddy they were real tight as friends. And pastors, I was around him. Boy, tell me he gonna take over the city of New York, Cuomo. That's the kind of gangster talk. He talking like a gangster, talking like that gangster Trump yesterday. Cuomo, you need to take a chill pill, homie. De Blasio ain't my friend either. And I think he did do a poor job. But you don't have to get out there and start mimicking Trump. You're going to legitimize Trump. Talking about he's going to send the army into the states if the governors don't call for it. If the governors don't put down these protesters, he's going to send the 82nd Airborne into the states without the governor approval. And now Cuomo's talking like Trump, talking that trash, Trump trash. Anyway, but the thing I noticed, however, on Monday night was because people used to say, remember, why y'all burning down your own neighborhood, especially the hillbilly boys down there in the South. You're burning down your own neighborhood. You're burning down your own neighborhood. Well, they ain't doing that no damn more. Sunday, I was watching out there in Santa Monica, pristine, high-end, upscale, if you will, show enough, up in there, Santa Monica, California, and right there on the drive that leads to the beach. Well, the waters in Santa Monica, got some special treatment in it. And they were looting and robbing. They walked into a Chase Bank. I said, well, lo and behold, they stopped looting in their own neighborhoods and they started looting and robbing in Santa Monica. And then that was Sunday. And then Monday night, I looked downtown at Macy's Herald Square, the world's largest store. They broke into Macy's. Oh, yes, they did. Them boys broke into Macy's and were coming out of there with mannequins. They were coming out of there with everything. Electronics, suits, jewelry. They were coming out of Macy's down on Herald Square. So Lord have mercy. What? I done died and gone to heaven. Look here. Usually these boys break, rob, and loot their own neighborhood. Not no more. Not no more. And they broke into Verizon, Dwayne Reed. They broke into, there's a Breitling. If you've been to 34th Street, you know anything about Herald Square, right? There's a Breitling, which is a very upscale watch store, right? Right across the street from Macy's, diagonally across the street, Breitling. They got all those Rolexes and Cartiers and Breitlings and all that, all that stuff, all them watches all sitting up in the window. They got $2 or $3 million worth of inventory of watches in that store right in the window. They broke that bad boy too. I said, Lord have mercy. Normally they get Harlem. They come up on 125th Street and they ride up here. There ain't nothing going up in Harlem. You can sleep on 125th Street and can't see a rioter. A Fulton Street in Brooklyn. But they did run over Madre, Evangelist Bowman told Elizabeth that they were looting up there in the Bronx. Come on. These people must be on drugs. These must be crack addicts. In the Bronx? What? Ain't nothing up in the Bronx? Loot. And a policeman got ran over, by the way, by some guy who looted and jumped in his car and ran over a cop, dragged him down the street halfway across Southern Boulevard, I heard. Anyway, so Now, the other thing I want to say about this is that this riot is very well organized. It is. And I was watching, so look what's going on here. They got several people that are groups that, first you got the Black Lives Matter, which they don't, and then they've got this group called the Boogaloo. I never heard about the Boogaloo before. These are a group of very young people who are pretty much, they're right-wing, quasi-white supremacists. I wouldn't call them fully white supremacists, but they sense that there's a revolution in the air. And they're trying to get there. If they come up with a strong leader, the Boogaloo movement, I don't know who their leader is, then they may go full revolution. I don't know if they're necessarily white supremacists. And the reason why they're not white supremacists is because many of them are still in their teens and early 20s. And a lot of these young Japheth boys that are in their teens and early 20s, they're not really stomped down hardcore, racists, They're not. They listen to rap music, and they like them Hamite girls with them big booties, They no, come on now. I'm Pastor Manning, gonna tell it like it is. And by the way, I just refuse to be anybody but who I am. And for too long, preachers and leaders have danced around the truth and tried to dress up reality. What it is, and you need to say it what it is, especially if the Bible says it, and if it's a medical term, say it. Preacher got just as much right to say what's true as anybody else. So, so some of these young Japheth boys who are part of the Boogaloo, they not necessarily like their elders. They can they get with some rap music and they get with country and western too, but but you got the Boogaloo and then you got Antifa, and so these are three organizations. I heard that these groups are leaving bricks on the sidewalk, on various around lampposts and about trees and everything. So when they march down to the police, that their bricks will be, they can come. The other day I saw this absolute truth. There was a boy on a bicycle. He was a Japheth boy too, by the way, on a bicycle. Had on a backpack. And in the backpack, he had a big, 5-inch sledgehammer with a long handle on it stuck down in his backpack. And he's on a bicycle, right? He going to the ride. He going to the march. Well, that sledgehammer was sort of breaking plate glass windows at Chase Bank and some of these other high-end stores like Gucci and, all these other stores, Ferragamo and, the breaking of those stores, that sledgehammer, you hit us at that. So I said, well, look at this. Hey, the question is philosophically here. One would argue then these people are not protesting the death of George Floyd. They're just opportunists. They're looters. I beg to differ. Can I talk to you for just a moment? And then I promise I'll inflict myself upon you any further. All right? But let's listen to this for just a moment. You don't have to believe me, but listen, I beg to differ to say that they're opportunists and that they're looters. Now, I don't condemn looting. I used to. Used to be a looter myself. I'm out of that. I don't do that no more. But I want to speak to you philosophically, religiously, and I want to spend a little time I have. Look at the time, it's almost gone. Let me tell you why I'm not ready to say that these people that are looting are necessarily wrong. Now, it's wrong to loot. It's wrong to thou shalt not steal. But this looks more to me like an eye for an eye. And you got to be able to take the scriptures and find out how to accurately apply in a hermeneutical sense what scripture belongs where. Are they stealing or are they demonstrating an eye for an eye? In other words, listen, the police been getting away with committing crimes and killing, shooting down Walter Scott, choking Eric Garner, choking George Floyd. It's just some of the obvious that's been caught on camera. These police been committing crimes, and not just murder, but a whole lot of shakedown crimes, a whole lot of robbery and stealing and drug dealing. They've been doing it for years. And by the way, you said not all police officers. Okay, all right, not all police officers. But you get the idea. So my thing is this. Well, I don't condone what the police do, but I don't condemn what the looters are doing, because they may see it as an eye for an eye. They may say, well, y'all do it. If the police can rob and steal and maim and murder, what the hell? This is an eye for an eye. We're going to do it too. Now, don't get on there and say, Pastor Manny condoning the rioting, looting, and burning. Hell, I ain't no more condoning that than I'm condoning George Floyd being lynched out there in the streets in front of the food cup, or the cup food, in Minnesota, Minneapolis. I ain't for neither one of them. I'm just trying to give you a perspective. Don't be so quick to blame these looters breaking into Macy's as having an unbiblical or religious point of view. An eye for an eye. That's what I see it as. So, I don't think any of it should happen. And I can tell you this. If George Floyd had not been lynched out there in front of the cup food the other day, well, none of this stuff would happen. That boy wouldn't have that sledgehammer. Macy's would still have their showroom run now. You know, so a lot of people see this as justice. Now, you got to think existentially about this. You just can't just wipe these off as the bad guys. You got to think, well, what is justice? And many of these people don't have no faith whatsoever in the court system, that any justice. The other 3 police that have not been charged at all. They just don't. Many people see this as justice. The crack Macy's, the crack Salvatore Ferragamo, the bank, Chase Bank. Many people see this as justice. Trust me, they'd be home smoking crack if he hadn't killed George Floyd. So, I'm not condoning either one. I'm not for either one. I'm just giving you the best philosophical view. And by the way, I know I'm getting a lot of trouble for this, but I consider the statements of the looters, and I condemn the looting, but I consider what the looters are doing more profound than what I hear Van Jones or Luz Granderson, or whoever the hell, Baraki or Maracas Sellers and Al Sharpton and Ben Crump and all the Magic Johnson and all these Hamite painted faces, people on news and in television, Dr. Cornel West. I see their statements a lot more profound and a lot more true and honest than the statements of these talking head black people on television. I think they're all a bunch of phonies. They're the ones who should arrest Cornel West. You should arrest Van Jones. Arrest them. They're the true looters of the black man. They're the true looters of the culture. They're the true looters. They're the ones that are benefiting with all that white money, all that money from Wall Street. Van Jones and Cornel West getting all that money up there in Harvard for looting the integrity of the black man. That's right. They're the ones that ought to be arrested. That's what I say. And what I say is always right. And by the way, I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.